There's no script.
Right.
There's no do this number of minutes.
Right.
Say these number of positive words.
Right.
There was some research that tried to do it. It was actually.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Second Opinion Podcast. I'm your host, Yossi Ben Shushan. Today with us discussing childhood. Had one? So did I. And what we carry from it. Have that? Yeah, me too. Today we have Dr. Issac Schechter, PsyD. Dr. Schechter is the advisor CCIO of CHEMED. He founded the Achieve Behavioral Health Clinic in Muncie, New York. He has 25 years experience of working with the Jewish community, initiating, revolutionizing the way that we treat, view, and understand mental health. Dr. Schechter is a pioneer in providing behavioral health for those who otherwise would never have gotten it. It's a pleasure to discuss things today with Dr. Schechter. I hope you guys enjoy it. And now, on to Dr. Schechter. Hey guys, we're going to get you right back to today's episode. But first, I want to speak about our sponsor, Rite Care. Now, if this is your first time hearing about Rite Care, I'm honestly jealous. You will not forget about the first time you heard about Rite Care, and you most definitely will not forget about the first time you used them. Picture this. You or your kid wakes up with a fever, sore throat, anything. You're just feeling off. The last thing you want to do is sit in traffic, make your appointments, go make sure you're at your appointment on time, not late. You're surrounded by all the other sick people who are just going to be getting you sicker, and then you have to wait for the doctor to be ready. Hopefully no one's running late. Your other kid's going to be picked up from carpool. Your phone's ringing. You had work. That's where Rite Care comes in. Rite Care sends a trained medical assistant straight to your home. They connect with a licensed provider while they are by you over video. They run all the necessary tests. They show up with their entire bag. We're going to go into it one time. They run all the tests that a regular doctor's office would be running. And they help to figure out what's going on with you. Most importantly, what you can do about it without leaving the comfort of your own home. They have service locations across New York, New Jersey. They offer the same day appointment, and they're open early mornings, late at night. It's a real life schedule that they're taking into account. They take all insurances and copays and are the same as a regular primary care visit. This is the same exact thing as going to a regular doctor. Rite Care partners with trusted medical centers, CHEMED Health, Ezra Medical Center. So if you or one of your kids need Rite Care, you can call, text, WhatsApp, or just book it online. And a friendly, Heimish medical assistant can be at your door within hours. Do yourself a favor, guys. Save the time, save the number, and most importantly, give them a call when you need. 732-292-5665. That's 732-292-5665. Because the next time someone in your house isn't feeling well, you'll be really glad you did. And now, back to our episode. And welcome back. We are sitting here with Dr. Schechter, and we are going to be talking about everything. Everything behavioral health. If you were able to sum up all of behavioral health in one sentence, it's my least favorite question anyone ever asks me on a panel.
That's a little bit annoying. Right.
Dr. Schechter, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Really excited.
So running, I'm going to jump right in. Running, innovating, really pioneering for, our intros never really do justice to who our guests are. But I truly feel that if everyone was involved in the mental health field, they'd be a little bit more impressed with who I have on all the time. Your entire rap sheet speaks for itself, what you were able to accomplish. And it's like when I was working in Kiruv, I always used to speak about certain Rabbanim that were around before it was cool. that started it before it was cool. I always speak about this Rabbi Freilach, for instance, who would go over to the Queens public schools, just stand outside and ask any white kid that walked out, "Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish?" That's how he did. No one asked him, no one hired him, no one wanted him to do. And then fast forward to today, that it's a whole profession and it's a whole. And I think the same thing applies for behavioral health. That at a certain in our history, at a certain point, the topic, forget individual topics within it, the topic was taboo. going to someone to talk about an issue you're suffering from in the mind, that was very, very taboo. Can you lead us off in the beginning? What possessed you? What got you started to say that we need to pioneer in the Jewish world mental health?
So it starts about 28 years ago, 29 years ago, when I started my doctorate, maybe 30 years ago. My wife was teaching in a school in Monsey, and I didn't know much about Monsey. But what I saw very clearly is this thing called mental health is probably something that community could use, as could most communities at the time. And I was blessed to be able to have an opportunity to present itself with Bikur Cholim in Rockland County, and to be the right shliach at the right time. And at this point today, it's very different, because I say all the time that every community needs a yeshiva, a Beis Yaakov, a mikvah, and a mental health service or mental health professionals. And it's just part of the needs of a town.
That's I love it. I never heard it phrased like that. It's usually like it seems like we sort of tricked everyone into having one,
right,
as opposed to it being a pillar in the community of something that's needed, and not as and I'm sure this is going to be a running theme in our conversation right now, not as a cancer to be solved,
right,
if you will. Mental health is something that is so vast, first of all, but even aside, it's a thing that's here to stay. Yeah. This isn't a disease that we need to, if we were just solve that part of our upbringing or this and that, no one will need mental health now.
So I think our entire, fast forward to all the years now, we'll go back to where we started. There's an interesting thing. So I actually think we're spending too much focus on behavioral health. Everybody has to be in therapy all the time. Everybody is traumatized. Everything is trauma. If everything is trauma, nothing is trauma.
There you go.
And it's not always just about therapy. It's about living healthful, positive, constructive, positive lives. And the goal isn't to deal with it's not just the sur meira all the time, do the negative, move away from the negative, the pathology, the problems, but it's actually also about the positive, creating systems and communities and infrastructure. And that's what I've been doing for the past 25, 26 years.
So I want to say a little disclaimer where this is our first time, although I obviously knew who you were, but this is our first time being able to sit down and have a conversation. So I assume you've never heard any of my classes or speeches or anything. So I just want to say a disclaimer that you've been around more than I have, or, before me. I didn't steal all of that from you, okay? But if you were younger than me, I'd be like, okay, before you start plagiarizing everything I've ever said, let's take a step back here and give credit to someone.
So feel free to use it free of charge.
It's exactly what I try to promote all the time, to prevent things like trauma bonding, right? Where people just go into this spiral of the only people allowed into their relationship circle are people who not only have trauma but experience that trauma, and then can say to everyone else, check your privilege on not having my trauma.
Right.
But now their privilege is a trauma now.
Right. So the truth is, there's a balancing act. And I think that we have to recognize pain. We have to recognize suffering that is real. And there are many, many, many people who feel pain and feel that suffering, and that shapes them. And that shapes them in very, very many real ways. And we have to recognize that that we have to be able to understand that people are going through that. At the same time, we also, and I'll add one more thing, our systems, building systems that are trauma-informed are very important.
Very important,
That means not just the therapist, that means the secretary, that means everybody should understand that we're dealing with people who are carrying a lot. That's one hand. On the other hand, we also can't just be trapped by our victimhood. And part of treatment is to live here now in the present. bringing that past with us and being here now in the present, not just having that formative time or times being the shaper of all things.
Right. And not having it as the definition
Exactly
of oneself.
who I am.
It's like, yeah.
Right. And again, and it's also very important to talk about post-traumatic stress disorders, but also post-traumatic growth, which is a very real thing. And as a people, we know this. As a communities, we know this. As individuals, we know this.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to quote Chazal?
No, yeah.
Okay, good. Just Torah shalamati ba'af yisha amdali. The Gemara, the Medrash says many places, that which I learned through suffering, that sticks with me. But I think that's really an important thing. One more thing going back to that is that this notion, I've been involved in a lot of research and a lot of studies and a lot of crises. There's this crisis, a shidduch crisis, a sexual abuse crisis. We've published papers on this. Not everything is a crisis. For the person going through stuff, it's really hard.
Someone asked a question about the shidduch crisis, and I said, I'm gonna answer your question about somebody who is having difficulty finding a shidduch. I'm not giving into this concept that you just threw upon me,
right,
that there is a shidduch crisis. I personally don't think there is. I think what we do as a people is that we go through something. Now it's both people's problem, because like you said, being trauma-informed, having schools that are trauma-informed, having parents that are trauma-informed, having grandparents and aunts that are trauma-informed is also extremely important so that we can have the space to work with and around the person. But for that person now, because they're suffering, because they're going through something and no one seems to be taking it seriously,
right,
now they want it to be a crisis so that we make an organization, right, so that we go make a thing that now we can do this. That doesn't actually make it into a crisis. And the more we start saying crisis, the more we are a self-fulfilling prophecy of everyone going into it with this insanely high level of anxiety and then fulfilling that to be a crisis now.
Yeah. So I really didn't steal. I've been talking about this for the past 10, 12 years. So, but it's. I think there's multiple pieces. Part of it is it's easier if it's a crisis, so that way everybody is stuck in this sinking boat with it, right? Yeah. Well, that's a nice way of saying it. But the idea.
It's forced Arif.
Right. You're going to be Arif.
You're going to be in this boat whether you like it or not.
No, but the truth is, I think there's flip sides to it also. In other words, it feels very often, I'll give a couple of examples. You know, if you, and Tehillim chats and saying Tehillim is incredibly important. But if I have access to all the cholim of the world, and people are living so much longer, so it's going to feel like it's mamish Mashiach Zeit, because everybody's so sick and there's a list of thousands of people. But no, we just have more information about things and we just have more people coming into us. But it's not necessarily that there's a crisis of cholim. I mean, for the people going through it, it's terrible. But if you think about it from a different way, there is stuff going on, and we communicate about it. There's communications, there's magazines, there are podcasts, and we're thinking and we're talking about this. On top of the Shabbos table talk that we usually do and solve all the world's problems. But besides that, but so there's much more awareness, so we want to solve things. So behavioral health was a real issue. Yeah. But it became great. But you know what? The community came together. If you think about, there are places like Achieve Behavioral Health in Muncie, which we started 26 years ago. If you think about CHEMED, if you think about different places all around, the community has come together to address these issues. So it's not necessarily crisis or even very uncomfortable topics like sexual abuse, etc. These are all things that, Baruch Hashem, we address. And the flip side, it's not a crisis because we're doing things about it. And the chesed and the values of the community play themselves out. Now, so just as, we could talk about Shidduchim and the Dida.
I'm sure we can have.
We can talk about that.
But I love that idea that you just said, that it's not a crisis if we have the infrastructure,
Right.
if we set up the infrastructure and we're
Right.
doing something about
Exactly. And that's the positive, the asay tov, that we're creating the positive. And same thing, mental health, because those things keep us locked in. A crisis, there's nothing you could do. There's fear, there's nothing I could do. But the more we say we could do on a small sphere, everybody has a sphere of influence, but also organizational community, the chesed of, we love to kvetch sometimes about the community, whatever community you're in. It's an equal opportunity. But there's so much good. And if you think of the mental health services, if you think of all the various services that communities do, it's really amazing. And it's very...
The concept here is if what I'm understanding from you is correct, is both sides of this are very, very important. So even if you're the one in the world right now that doesn't know someone, that isn't related to someone, that isn't friends with someone who has some sort of trauma or who has some sort of legitimate issue going on, even if you are that one, you should still be educated. I'm not saying everyone needs training, but you need to be educated in these things, because the like you were saying before about post-traumatic trauma or post-traumatic stress versus post-traumatic growth. The concept over there is they've done studies where children, it was done on children, but the children who experienced a traumatic event didn't necessarily need to have trauma later on. And it wasn't just the basic of anyone experiencing traumatic event doesn't need to have trauma. But what they found is that it wasn't even the event that gave them the trauma. What the way the trauma built was the shame, silence, and confusion of the years of not being able to work through it, of being able to feel that way, act in certain ways as a child will, and go through that, and just being shut down and shamed for it is what led to the result of the trauma, whether it be addiction or anything else. So when we have, and the other way, they found that when the child did have the space and place to be able to discuss it, to be able to talk about it, to be able to work through it, they had a tremendous amount of post-traumatic growth. So, and they developed this resilience. And so to the average person, so on the one hand, the average person needs to have a good foundation of understanding of trauma and general mental health. And then on the other end, the person suffering through it needs to understand that we need to get them to a place where they understand that this doesn't define them. This isn't who they are as a person. This is a struggle that they carry with them, and that load gets lighter when you're able to go for the help to lighten that load, and you're able to live an amazing life, an incredible life, even a life of resilience and growth, like we said, because that help is available. So those two ends, if I'm understanding you correctly, those two ends are very important for communities to be holding.
So I think I don't want to just frame this in terms of trauma, right? Because it's much more than just trauma. I'll say it like this in a very scientific way. Everybody's got stuff. Everybody's got stuff. So that's a very precise definition. But that stuff manifests and comes out in different ways. And sometimes therapy is an important part of that. Sometimes therapy isn't part of it, but it is a very useful tool to be able to address it. And just like you mentioned, trauma, but again, we're not just talking about trauma. There's many different ways to be and many different ways to react. Some people want to talk about it. Some people don't want to talk about it. It's not like if you don't talk about it, no, talk about more and more and more. Right. No, sometimes that's not good. Sometimes you have to, according to who the person is, according to who the person's psychological makeup, their personality, their style, and you can't force these certain things. We can't force them to be, what's an important concept for mental health, to be able to be matched or best matched with your parents, to be able to understand what this kid needs. Right? educate or bring the child to their own path, and even when they get older, they'll never deviate from it, because it's them. It's not us putting them in this box. And that's true for parents, and it's parents, that's therapy. You have to know who the kid is and be responsive. It's education, etc.
It's also our conversations with ourselves.
Exactly. We have to know
allowing me to be on the dark. That's my derech.
It's my path.
Important. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But this notion of being able to be matched to what the person is, there's also in a different way. This is a famous psychologist, Dr. Chaim Kinot. He's an Israeli, and he had the book based on his teachings, his students. The book, the title is everything. How to talk so your children will listen, how to listen so your children will talk. That's it. Just that title.
Yeah, I've said this so to people. I'm like, get this book and just read the title. That's the entire concept you need right now.
Read it and reread it many times. But that's what it's about, because it's about relationship. Ultimately, it's about relationship. As parents, it's about relationship. In therapy, it's relationship. In education, it's relationship. Everything is in that context. And there's a give and a take. You can't just take all the withdrawals without any deposits. And what those deposits are, what those withdrawals are, depends on who the kid is, who the parent is. Telling me more than one word about your day in school, that's a withdrawal. And then I need to make deposits to get that.
What do I do over there in order to develop that ability to chanach bidarko or to accept the person as they are?
So I'm going to start again one step before. We're talking about there's a problem, so what do I do? What's my mission statement of being a parent? Nothing to do with ADHD, anxiety, not doing well in school, social issues. No. That's not why I became a parent. Became a parent to be able to bring children into the world. What's my mission statement there? What do I want from my children? It's honestly just to bring me joy and happiness and satisfy every need for me. But it's about, what do I want them to look like? What do I want them to become? And I think that's an important point. Thinking about the relationship. What should this relationship be? It's the scaffolding of who our kids are. There should be, and again, we have our own personality as parents. Parents have their own mix between their parents. But there should be a certain amount of joy, simcha, a certain amount of purpose and values that we're bringing into it, but also a certain amount of understanding. And not everybody's the same. Not all my kids are the same. What they might need might be a little bit different from me. And that becomes a scaffolding of this child, Chanoch Lenar Pidarko, developing into themselves. Right. So I think that becomes very, very important to be thinking about those sorts of things. Now, that means I have a relationship with them. I could sense that some things go awry. I could sense that something's not going 100% correct. I could also know what's too much, what's too little. When they need a little bit more of a smile, they need a little bit more of a space, as an example. So if we have that as a starting point, the intuitive, natural, normal, healthy relationship as the core, that becomes a very basic idea that guides everything. It's actually described very interesting in Sefer Shari Orav, in Kabbalistic terms, but that's that the ultimate goal for us to express is Rachamim Pshutim, kindness, love, and just giving and that love. Nobody says, I want to have a kid so that I could give them a patch and put them in timeout. We have to stay close to what's our goal, what's our purpose, where are we coming from, and we have detours. We have to parent along the detour. Right. But the main thing is to maintain that relationship. If you're in tune and in sync with that relationship, it becomes much easier. And you don't necessarily need saying, do this, do this. You develop that sense and you ask people that you trust, who are thoughtful and understand you and your context. Getting absolute advice from a book, from someone that doesn't know you, is probably not always so useful. Or podcasts. Sorry.
No, 100%.
But it's understanding my child, me and my child in that context.
Which actually leads me to my next question. on the idea of, because I've had people, come up to me and, say, I tried this thing that you said, and, it fell flat. I'm like, okay, how did you try it? And every aspect of the story, every important bullet point of their life and their history led that was not advice for you, like in any way.
Right.
That doesn't apply here.
Right.
We're going to take a quick break to discuss our sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by CHEMED, a patient-centered medical center built on a simple belief: healthcare should feel connected, not complicated. CHEMED brings primary care, urgent care, pediatrics, women's health, behavioral health, any specialty really. All the services together under one roof, so patients don't have to navigate their care alone. With teams working collaboratively, patients benefit from all of their doctors. Better communication, smoother follow-up, and more thoughtful outcomes. All of these people working together creates a much more synergized and streamlined a point of care for people. What truly sets CHEMED apart is their whole person approach. Medical providers work closely with behavior specialists, care management, and support services to ensure care doesn't stop when the appointment ends. Rather, it continues with the patient all through every appointment, every time that they come for point of care. CHEMED also prioritizes access with timely appointments and care designed for real families, real people, real schedules in their real daily lives. They are deeply rooted in the community. CHEMED is committed not just to the treatment of all people, but to education, prevention, and long-term wellness. To learn more or experience care that feels coordinated and human, visit CHEMED at their Lakewood locations on Madison or River, or in Jackson, or online at chemedhealth.org. Hey guys, we're going to get you right back to the episode, but I just want to talk to you about today's sponsor, Vivid. If you ever stood in front of your vitamin cabinet and wondered, am I even taking the right thing? This happens to me all the time. I'm constantly going through my vitamins, through my supplements, and seeing, does any of this apply to me? Are you dealing with low energy, allergies, sleep issues, or just feeling not yourself? It can get confusing. For me and a lot of people I know. And that is exactly where Vivid exists. They're not a brand pushing one product specifically. You're going to hear all over the place one green juice or one vitamin being sold. They're a vitamin concierge service. You can call, you can WhatsApp, and they're going to explain to you exactly what it is that you need to be taking for your lifestyle and your needs are. They're going to guide you through, take away all the confusion between brands, dosages, what makes sense for you to take, what you don't need to be taking. You want someone to review what's already in your cabinet, they can do that for you too. Even if you're not placing an order, just reach out. They're there to help. You'll be greeted by a super friendly team that actually listens. Their service is efficient, responsive, and easy. And they constantly run exciting specials on their platform. And when you first connect with them, you receive a very exciting welcome package filled with valuable and useful items that make the experience even better. Call, text, or WhatsApp 845-388-1599. That's 845-388-1599. Or you can visit their website at myvivid.com, and you'll be directed straight to someone who is knowledgeable and can help you. Just message them. Consider your vitamins handled. What would be something or warning signs that you would say, here, this point, let's try to get you some help?
I mean, there's different layers to this. When there's something that's a very significant dysfunction, which means a dysfunction means somebody, like in an adult context, if I can't work, if I can't get married, if I can't do things that I'm expected to do in my developmental stage, I can't, man, whatever the thing is, it's the same thing for kids. So if I can't go to school, if I can't function at school, it doesn't mean where's the extra, points. Why didn't you get 100? That's not a reason. But not being able to have and make friends, have and be productive in school, function within the family life in a very basic level. Those sorts of things, and if it's consistent, not just one day off or a week off, but there's something going on, or there's a particular incident that happens that I know about that is concerning, overwhelming, and sort of like shifts the trajectory a little bit. Those are things that are very useful.
So we used the term, or you just used the term can't. Can we elaborate on can't
Sure.
a little bit?
So if somebody is not functioning at the level that would be expected for them,
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
that would be expected for them for their particular developmental stage, their particular community, and then it becomes something worthwhile.
Right.
But let's also be clear, it doesn't, going into therapy, let's say, doesn't have to be scary, doesn't have to be a forever process. We come in with certain challenges, and I also should say that there's both internal and external versions of it.
Right.
Externally, I can't go to school. I'm too anxious. I'm stuck. But there are also times internally where I could go through the motions, but I'm just miserable. Yeah. And I have so much pain, and I'm so sad, I'm so anxious, and I feel like I could be doing something different. I could be doing more. So there's the internal and the external. The external tends to get the most attention when you're punching the other kids in the class, like we need to do something. But when I'm suffering inside of me, and that tends, not always, but
I feel like I'm keeping it together.
Right, exactly. So that tends to be a little bit more common in the girls, and the externalizing a little bit more in the boys. But those are different versions of that as well. So those are times, and it's important to see it not as a failure, but as a strength to get help. And there's a fundamental statement of optimism. I think therapy does not absolve the person that's in it from their work, because it's not the therapist that magically mumbo jumbo does stuff to you. And it's also the parents aren't off the hook either. Right. The parents have to do the work, and sometimes it's useful for the parents to go.
Sometimes,
yeah, sometimes. When there's
seen
a
any
challenge,
cases of that this week? Or maybe once in the past year.
And the answer is yes. But because sometimes people get confused, like that the therapist is sort of like the garage.
Right.
My kid's broken, so I'll leave him by you in the shop. Yeah. So I'll pick him up in a month.
Right.
After you figure out.
That's why I'm laughing. I'm laughing because we tend to. Even in schools, with the kid who doesn't have problems, we tend to just drop the kid off and be like, learn something.
Right.
Like, without us thinking that we still need to be very involved. And that's why I'm laughing. I'm not laughing because I'm saying it's the parent's fault.
Right.
It has nothing to... I'm laughing because people think it's the parent's fault.
Right.
It has nothing to do with that. It's the responsibility that's involved over here.
I mean, I think one of the challenges is, sometimes parents do think, just fix my kid. It's much easier. And that's why it's easier to have sometimes kids come in because they're forced to come in by grown-ups, but sometimes it's the parents that need the supports and also the tweaks. But it's also interesting because sometimes parents feel like education's not my problem, that's why I pay tuition, so the school does it. Sometimes the school feels like the parents have nothing to do with it because that's why we're here to take care of it. It's really a partnership, obviously. Yeah.
I do think a lot of problems, just not to get too deep into this, but a lot of problems stem from that. And I think it's subconscious. I don't think the parents are actually saying, like, I'm washing my hands clear of my kid over here. I think every parent wants what's best for their kid. They just think that the school or the therapist or whoever is going to do a better job.
Right.
And I think that's where certain inappropriate relationships begin from, because if that therapist, teacher, whatever starts with this parenting and mothering and loving relationship with the child in place of that. These things get very blurred, very bad, very quick, and it's not good for anyone.
I think we have to go, it goes back to a very basic principle of what I was saying before. Parents are the fundamental relationship with the child. Right. They are the scaffolding. They are the mold by which kids bring up. There are other relationships that are important, but those are secondary to the parents. Right. And that's where we always need to bring them back to. Therapists should not be in locus parentis, that instead of the parents, they can offer parent support. They could sometimes offer perspective and distance that parents can't, but they're not replacing parents. And we really want to encourage that fundamental relationship. Right. And I think that's really a key piece. And parents encouraging that before pathology, before any problems, is building that and honoring that role that they have. I think one other thing I'm just going to say that's that I think is really important, that is actually related to reducing the risks and reducing the likelihood of problems, is developing two very important points. One is curiosity. If parents and children can...
And husbands and wives.
Right, exactly. If parents can develop a sense of curiosity in children, it'll be interesting. That also allows for curiosity about themselves, to ask questions about themselves. If I ask questions of my child and I'm curious about them, I'm sending so many important messages. I'm saying you exist as an independent person, and I'm interested in what your thoughts are on a certain topic. I have tremendous wisdom to frame for you, but I'm seeing you as an independent person. I'm an independent person, that I could think about myself and my own ideas and thoughts. But then as a child, you become curious about the world, and it's very, very healthy, and we need more of it, as opposed to mindlessly scrolling through whatever we might scroll through, or whatever version of that. So that's one, curiosity. Both parents to children, spouses to each other, and just people in the world. Be curious about people. It's a very, very, very healthy thing. That's one. And then two is purpose and values. We need to talk about values. And that can mean a lot of things. It doesn't just mean Shteit in Shulchan Aruch, it says in the Codex of Jewish Law, X, Y, and Z. But the idea of values, that we give over unique values to our kids, it comes up a lot when I talk to parents about how to speak to children about their development, about puberty. There's a purposeful development that you're going through. It's not just, don't do this, don't do this. There's a purpose in it. And it's part of a larger picture that we could give over. And it's almost like an animating energy, values. And we do it with the curiosity, but we do it when they see us living according to our values. And sure, I mean religious ones, but there's religious ones, there's things like humility, there's things like respect. And you could translate into a lot of religious ideas, but it's how I live my life. Right. And of course, I've tried many times, do as I say, not as I do. It just doesn't work, despite all my best efforts. And I think these are important. How,
a kid comes home from school, right? I don't know if you're a homework fan or not. I personally am very against homework.
I'm actually for homework.
Really? Okay.
I think it's important. It teaches discipline. It doesn't have to be 6 hours every night. Right. But it's something that means that I carry through something. But it has to be thoughtful. It has to be useful. It has to say, this thing I'm doing, I'm wasting so many hours on, should be valuable that I have to carry it through. But it should be something that can be done not by parents and not in 6 hours.
Right. I don't mind homework of go home and do 10 minutes of reading.
Right.
Go home and, find a bunch of apples to count and then separate them or whatever. I mind, trying to track everybody's sheets and things, and then it's 4 pages long, and then the teacher's like, "What? It's only 5 minutes." I'm like, I have 5 kids.
Right.
And it's not 5 minutes. I have to tell him to go get his bag, fight him for the bag. I have my children. Just take one of them for example. Right, he gets home at 4:00. He goes to bed at 7:30. Right, that's my time with him. That's all I get.
Okay, right.
So during that time, how much time do I need to sit down focused on him? No phone, no anything. No, because I think people get overwhelmed by this. They're like, every time I come home, I put my phone into a thing, and that lasts about 2 whole days. Yep. Because you're trying to simultaneously break an addiction, go through withdrawal, and show your children that life is amazing. Yeah. I don't think it works. So what is like I don't want to say a minimum, but...
So there's no script.
Right.
There's no... do this number of minutes,
right.
Say these number of positive words.
Right.
There was some research that tried to do it. It was actually debunked. You need 7 positives for every.
Really?
But it's a good idea to do more positive than negative. Yes. Yeah. The exact contours
the 80-20
of that,
rule and all of that, right? Yeah.
But the idea is, again, go back, and this is not satisfying because I'm going to say, think about the big role. Think about your role, and it's not about this minute and it's not about this thing. It's about the totality of it. It's much easier to say, if you just do these 10 minutes after school, your child will be perfect in every way. Yeah. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we, with our kids and with ourselves, the problem is that we don't accept the problem. Yeah. And as we have problems, we have stuff. The more I push against it, the more, no, it can't be. And the more rigid I become against it, whether it's the homework, whether it's a particular issue my child is having, whether it's something within me, within my spouse, the more I say, no, I can't have that. I rigidly am in a power struggle with it, the more intense it takes. The more intense it becomes, and the more space it takes up. Being able to say, I accept that there's a challenge here. Okay, now let's see what we could do. Like, so much of that mental energy is no longer in that big fight. So I think that's important. And that's true of therapy, it's true about all this stuff. And therefore accepting the reality and not saying, no, I need the perfect Shabbos table. Everything is perfect, and all the children are lined up, waiting for their the light of Shabbos just to hit their faces and reflect. And everybody says their divrei Torah from school, and everything is perfect, and the table looks just like in the magazines, and it's exact. No, if I expect that every single week, I'll be disappointed every single week.
I'll tell you a quick. I was sitting with these parents, and the father said, I was trying to do what you said, and I've been doing well with it. He's like, but this past week, I just lost. It was Hanukkah. He's like, I went to shul. I go to shul Dav Mara before I was lighting, so I went to shul, he said, and he sees like all his friends all have their sons with them, and all the families. He's like, then I start walking down the block, and I see everyone's menorahs already in their windows, and he's like, I could smell the latkes cooking in their house. He's like, then I show up to my house, and this kid's doing that son's killing him, my wife's nowhere to be found, and someone tipped over my menorah. So I said, just for myself, let's just rewind. Who was in shul with his sons? He's like, there was a guy there with one of his kids. I'm like, who did you see going home? He's like, it's not the point. I'm like, it's totally the point. You rallied yourself that whole way home. So for myself, what I do is, and I'm always grateful for myself because I laugh at the Erev everything, either 2 days or 3 days before, and then Erev, like that, whether it's Pesach, Sukkot, Hanukkah, there's a reminder that pops up on my phone from myself a year ago that says, nothing's ready. Everyone's not dressed. It's gonna be fine. That's just great. Smile and be okay. And I'm so grateful for myself every time because I'm usually the Rebbeinu says I'm usually in the moment. I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. But I do think or feel that through what you're saying, it's so deep. I'm saying it's so important to be calm. To take that step back, to be calm, to understand that these things are workable, in both ends, on the macro and micro way of it, that our community is not and it's one-way trip down, and us as families, we don't need to hide as much. There is oversharing. There are people who, like I said before, are trauma bonding. Not that either, but a legitimate way to be able to connect to people, to be able to hold space for what people might be going through, as opposed to facing it immediately with judgment. Now, when like people could be calling any, CHEMED's a great example. The clinic of Muncie is a great. Achieve is a great example. What would their first steps over there be to get help?
Well, I think the first thing is just to make a phone call.
I think people don't know that. That's why I'm saying
it's just to make a phone call, and there's nothing magic. It's just you make a phone call, and in that phone call they might ask you for some basic information. They might say, "Come in for an intake." An intake is important because you can't just take one sliver of a sentence and that's the whole thing. So you take the basic information, and then you go through a process of then matching to the right therapist or the right person that's going to be able to help. And that's the process.
That's amazing.
And I think it's important to say a couple of things about that. One, you want to be able to make sure you're working with a reputable person or within a reputable system that has responsibility for its staff.
I would assume that's why places like Achieve and the Rite Care, Achieve, all these need to exist to a certain.
In fact, one of the things that I think there was a period of time for many years that clinics were like, "Oh, you're going to a mental health clinic. You must be crazy."
Padded room.
Right. Or it's like, "Oh, only the worst people work there. That's a terrible place to be.
A clinic,
you should go to, this person who charges. The more they charge, the better their degree. The more they charge, the better they must be." It used to be this terrible reputation, like clinics. So, but the more, like Achieve, like all these different clinics that are emerging, to be able to deeply invest in the staff, to have supervision, I'm going to say have data, to have oversight, to see, are things progressing? Or how do you know things are going well? Well, they keep coming back every week. Yeah, because you're so warm and fuzzy and you're basically giving them milk and cookies every day. So you're having the data, having oversight and supervision and systems, and that it turns out that it's really, really important. And private practice is wonderful and it's fantastic. I don't want you to get hate mail. Not me. But no, that's also very important for the right things in the right place. But there are systems in play that are low cost, are take insurance, and are very good. And that's what, I've been trying to build out
That's amazing.
over the past many years.
One last question, and then we're gonna wrap up. Yeah. Although, Dr. Schechter, we're gonna do it again because we could do this for a while.
Yeah.
One last question, and there's definitely a lot into this question. I apologize about that, but I feel like I'd be remiss to the audience not asking it because it's something I run into with people. This is literally daily. Mm-hmm. Is there a danger to them going to a clinic that, like Achieve or any of these other clinics, CHEMED, where most of the staff, if not all, are from Jews from my community? Is there a danger in me doing that? Or what would you say to the person who believes that there is a danger? Because it's a foregone conclusion to them that I'm not going to them because I have kids in Shidduchim.
Right. So I think a couple of things here. One, I think we've evolved a lot as a field. The stigma is less. The meaning of being in therapy is not like, "Oh, so obviously you're crazy." I mean, I get the question all the time. It's actually amazing. You have a certain challenge, you're getting tools. Like, wouldn't you want your husband, your wife, your son-in-law, your daughter-in-law to be somebody who is getting tools to be responsible
Yeah,
for
but
themselves.
that guy doesn't need it. Why do I need
I
it?
said, I can tell you, he's in therapy. I know.
Dr.
And,
Lieberman once
yeah,
said that he had a whole session with someone and they were talking about the Goldbergs next door and how they kept comparing themselves.
Yeah.
He's like, what I couldn't tell them is that I was rushing them out because
exactly.
the Goldbergs were my next.
Right, exactly. And being able to live our own value-based, curious, purposeful, healthy relationships really allows us to sidestep some of that. That's one. Obviously, if you're going to a place that you feel that the guys, do you know who I saw in therapy this week? Do not go to them. And I'll say even further, report them and make them lose their
Immediately.
license. But that's not a thing that actually happens. We have amazing professionals that take their work very seriously and take their responsibility towards themselves and to their clients very seriously. And also the quality is much, much better. And also therapy and mental health is parts of community now. It's not like this is something that like, oh, in hushed tones.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. And
I don't know if this is a personal thing or not. So I never really say it when it comes to this. I'm like, but if you think I really remember,
right, that's
I
true.
really, really, really don't. And maybe that's just my memory. And it's not because I don't care. It's just because, it's a lot. There's a lot of talking over the course of a day, and there's a lot of information. I don't remember it. That's it. You're not losing anything by me. Trust me. Dr. Schechter, I cannot thank you enough for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, really
And,
wonderful.
Looking forward to doing it again. Hopefully
Yes,
very
very
soon.
much.
We got a lot more to talk about.
Great. All right. All the best.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for watching the episode. Here at Second Opinion, we're always trying to have you be the one who makes the second opinion. I hope today's episode allowed you the information and access to that information enough to be able to decide for yourself. If you like today's episode, if it spoke to you and you want to see more, we got more. You can access our podcast on anywhere, any platform where you get your podcast. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever it is, we're on there. Video, audio, you got it. Please remember to like and subscribe. And again, thank you guys for joining us.